Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tech Backstage. My name is Eddie, joined by Anand Diraviyam from Airs today. Anand, how you doing?
Good, Eddie. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks. It's Friday. I'm excited because F1 is back and we got triple header coming up, and just got some really great family events planned for the weekend. So I'm excited, and we had a real solid week this week. So it's a good day, man. Thanks for taking the time to join us. I'm excited to jump into the topic. Really unique problem that Airs is trying to solve right now, and is solving, and excited to talk about that. But before we jump into that, let's talk a little bit about you. Let's tell the viewers a little bit about your history and your backstory, where you came from, and how you ended up at Airs.
Sure. So I, I came to the US about 20 years ago for work. I'm primarily from India. I studied there, and for work, I had come to Pittsburgh in the US. And we were going through some life transition, and I happened to stumble upon Airs for one of my friends referred this company, and I thought I'll have that as a transition. But I was more from a banking background, and I wanted to go from a banking in a software or product development aspects of it. But once I started working for Airs, I got so much gravitated towards this relocation world. So a little bit of about our company. We solve relocation needs for our clients. What does
Hmm.
that mean? Is that when our clients have a lot of their employees move from one place to another, then we provide services to them, whatever they need, from house hunting trip, or selling their house, or uh, shipment of household goods, or finding a school for their kids, etc., etc. And we have a network of partners around the globe to provide those services. And we are also a global company, headquartered in Pittsburgh, but overall we have offices around five or different locations in the US, and in London and Hong Kong and Singapore, so across the globe as well.
Very
And
cool.
I got sucked into this relocation world, and interesting fact is that relocation is the number third stressful event in anybody's life, next to death and divorce, and understandably so. And I had experienced that as part of my
Right.
move from India to here. When you come to a new place, everything is new. You have to go through all of that, establish social connections, and how can you become more well established in a newer place is something which I personally went through, and
Yeah.
that is something which I was really passionate about. And the people and the leadership at Aeris is really great, and that helped. One thing led to another, and I'm here for last 14 years.
Wow, 14 years. That's an incredible run at a single company. But for relocation, you said death and divorce. Not great company to be in when it comes to stressful events. Obviously, it is. I'd almost say traumatic. I also have experience with it as well. I'm in Mexico right now. I'm originally from Spokane, Washington, and my wife's from Mexico. And when we met, we decided to get married. She was working in Mexico, and didn't have the opportunity to leave her job to come to the United States. And since I was working remote, I made the jump to move to Mexico. And
Hmm.
um, you know, my family's been visiting Mexico for my entire life. I've been going to Puerto Vallarta since I was, since I could walk. And so I'm very familiar with the culture. I'm very familiar with the language, but nobody can really prepare you, I think, for the cultural shock of
Hmm.
actually transitioning from one company to or one country to another, even if you are familiar with it, right?
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit about your own personal experience, from moving to India to the United States, because I have to imagine, moving from the US to Mexico, they're right next door, so there's still a lot of cultural similarities. But I have to imagine a jump from the US, or from India to the US,
Hmm.
that's got to be a little bit shocking, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, and I'll tell you an interesting story. Back in 20 years ago in India, we carry the way we organized all the commerce was through cash. Like there were digital payments, but not a lot. If you were to go to a hotel and rent a room or things of that nature. So when I started coming here, I went to the bank and got like $100 US notes and loaded up my purse. And then I came here, and the first thing I stayed in a hotel. So, of course, when you come into a new place, you don't have a bank account established, a credit card or debit card. So everywhere I used to carry this big wallet with loads of cash, and whenever I pulled my cash and give it to them, people looked at me really strange.
Right.
And that was one of the funniest thing, which now I don't have any cash in my purse at all, but that was the funniest thing which happened. And the concept of how simple things like that is so different
Yeah.
than what it used to be. And probably now in India, everything is digitalized. Maybe it's not a story at all, but that was like, I'm talking in 2000, it was like 22 years ago.
Yeah.
That's how things were. And starting with that to all the different types of, even if I know English, there is a lot more dialects and the culture of speaking. You get used to it, and that was really really interesting. Um, and one more interesting story I'll let you know is that back in India, you valued your um, elders a lot, meaning like if they are, age above your age, then you kind of treated them with respect and you did that. So when I came here, there was a elderly lady, then my age, but not she was not very old. So I kind of, in the respect, I was talking to her, went to lunch with her, and my boss asked me, "What's up with that? Why are you hitting on that lady?" And I was like, "No, that was not my intent." And it was so funny because the cultural shock of how you treat people versus what is perceived here is entirely different. So those are two
Yeah.
key unique example of how things are a little different when, even though um, you try to do the good thing, sometimes
Yeah.
you learn from that.
No, that's great. I love those, both of those examples, because I experienced very similar things in Mexico. Coming from the US, I've always used debit cards, or not always, but for a good amount of time I've used debit cards.
Mhm.
And coming to Mexico, one of the things you'll realize is that um, nowadays most of the time terminals work, but there's still a lot of places that only want to accept cash. And then on top of that, they don't always keep the right amount of change in the drawer. So you really have to, kind of carry a, I guess, a wild card or a mixed bag of bills, because, if it only costs 100 pesos and you only have a 500 peso bill, um, they might not have change for that. And so
Mhm.
I had to really adjust backwards from carrying a debit card around all the time to, yeah, at least having a little bit of cash in my wallet just in case.
Mhm.
So I always found that really interesting. And then to your point about elders, the thing in Mexico is the family unit's really close here. And I remember, my parents and me are, we're like best friends now. I love my parents. I talk to them all the time. But, you know, in the US, it's very much that, like, you get to 18, it's like, you get out on your own, right? And that's the way it is. But here it's very much closer to the family is a lot closer.
Mhm.
There's no need to like leave the nest at 18 years old. And so it's just it's yeah, man, it's a cultural shock, and it's not good or bad. It's just the fact that it's different, right? And
Mhm.
it's different than what you're used to. And I think that's important to recognize, because again, it's not good or bad, but leading to what you're talking about stress, I remember the first couple years being in a foreign country,
Mhm.
it was stressful for me. And it wasn't just the move that was stressful. It was, needing to communicate in a foreign language all the time. It was understanding, again, I'd go to the pharmacy and the credit card machine wouldn't be working, and I'd have to go and find an ATM and get cash out, go back to the pharmacy, and but on top of that, there's different cultural standards, that you do different things on the weekend. And that kind of leads to you being outside of your comfort zone, right? Which is
Mhm.
why something like this is, such a stressful life event, right? And you're
Mhm.
also, in your case, I'm sure you have a lot of family back in India. I have family back in the US. And then
Mhm.
you're moving to this foreign country. You're far away from your friends and family. And, it's just a stressful situation. So I think that's actually a great segue into the topic, which, talking about how airs is improving the customer experience in relocation, right?
Mhm.
Because that's your guys' mission, right? To make it a less stressful experience. One of the things I want to dive right into, and it's something that you highlighted right before we were talking, or right before we went live. Give me a little bit of context around the term high touch and high tech, because I think you highlighted it elegantly backstage, and I'd love to talk a little bit about those two terms, because I think it's really important to the way that airs is operating, and I think it's also really important to the problem that your company is solving.
Sure. So when we talk about our company, we are big believers in customer experience is a sum of all the experiences, including technology and including customer service. So there are, depending on who you talk to, there are a school of thoughts of, well, the best way to improve the stressful event is to through 100% white glove customer service, where you assign a specific consultant to somebody who's moving and they are the go-to person, and the human touch is very much important, which is very, very true. But there is also school of thoughts in terms of, well, in this new technology world, there should be technology solutions and self-serve opportunities for people if they want to choose to do so, and that there is that high-tech approach. And where Aries believes, and what we believe, is that customer service is going to be unique to, our customer experience is going to be unique to every single person. And it is not one or the either. It's going to be a mix of both. And what it means for one person might be different for another person. And so, what we strive to do is meet the person in terms of how they would like the customer experience to be, so that we can make that entire stressful event less stressful and make them productive in their new workplace.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's really important as well, because the problem that airs is trying to solve right now, it's not ever going to be, or at least this is my opinion, right? But your company isn't just a Texas to a Maryland, or a Texas to a Washington state, right? It could be, US to Mexico, or US to Germany, or
Mhm.
Germany to Australia. So you actually, each person that passes through the airs ecosystem, they're in a unique situation. They're moving for a specific reason, whether it's job, family, whatever the reason to move is. But there's also unique circumstances around where they're moving from, where they're moving to, the different types of support systems that they need in place. Do they have kids? Do they not have kids? Right. And so there's, each one is in a unique situation. And you're right. There's a lot of people like me, like, I like to be plugged into tech, and I like to actually be able to, for the most part, self-serve anything that I'm working on. But I do always like having the option, if something goes wrong, like there's a human being right there that I can talk to. Right.
Mhm.
Um, Talk to me a little bit about how airs, in each customer's experience. How do you guys, handle that, as far as, like, intaking a new customer who's looking to relocate,
Mhm.
um, and actually, analyzing their situation, and, just, or not necessarily deciding, but how do you guys help tailor that experience to each person?
Sure. So the first is more in terms of, even we say that we are a technology based company, but in the customer service world. So we hire people who are really good at customer service, like who have the heart to serve. So that starts there. And these guys are our first line of consultants who reach out to the employee because most of the corporate clients are the ones who tell us, okay, so and so is moving, and as you said, it might be across the globe, and the consultant would reach out to the employee and say, let's have an initial consult and talk to them about what the company policies are, because there is benefits the company is authorizing them to do, and then how that fits in their unique and personal life. Do you have a pet? Do you have any special um, collection of things, like you, somebody has a wine collection, or somebody has a gun collection and they want to take them along with it, or somebody has a specific pet who they want to move. So all of that we try to find out, and then trying to kind of marry what the company supports versus what they want to do. And we then also find out based on how they would like to be communicated,
Mm-hmm.
and how they would like to receive information and get that information. And most often we see a mix of different things, right? Like sometimes the person, the whom we are moving, he or she might be too busy, and they might say, well, talk to my partner. And then we would understand that the partner is the main point of contact for this, but then we will also try to understand how do they want to be notified. And then we really work hard to provide very meaningful service to that person. And it starts with that consultant, but then eventually we also kind of bring in a lot more technology to aid in that, not
Mm-hmm.
only for the direct transferee who's moving, but also our internal employees. We build everything, software products, in-house, and it is used by our consultants as well as the transferee. So we aid in that experience by providing the technology as an enabler, but at the end of the day, the consultants are the ones who kind of try to figure out what makes the meaningful sense to the person.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So you're not just, and I think the other thing that I read is you guys are focused more on B2B, so helping employees of, your client companies during their relocation efforts, right? So, but I love what you just said about, you guys are a tech company in a customer service world, right? Because your customer at least in my experience is you guys are in a customer service based role, and you're solving problems that are required face to face, or talking to people on the phone, but you're backing it up with a tech company, right? And I love what you said about the consultants are the ones that actually they have access to tools that you've built in house. Obviously the end client, the person who's actually moving, also has access to those tools as well. But that you're supporting your internal client or your internal employees as well, helping during that relocation process, right? I think that's huge. You also said that Airs has been around. You've been with Airs for 14 years, right?
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about the journey, because tech 14 years ago versus the way it is today,
Mhm.
it's a very different landscape, right? So I'd love to hear a little bit about how Airs has grown up as a company over the last 14 years that you've been with them. Maybe talking about some of the things that you worked on that you're excited about and passionate about, but would really love to hear what sort of transformation the company's gone through over the last 14 years. I think that's an interesting thing to look at.
Sure, sure. And I think we've been in business for almost 42 years now. We
Wow.
celebrated
Okay.
our 40th year anniversary in 2020. So we've been in business since then. So when I joined the company, the entire company was about 100 plus, and I think right now we are about 700 plus
Wow. Okay.
employees. So on an average, you can tell that we are growing somewhere between 10 to 15% a year, and that's been a really exciting journey for us. The reason is, as we are scaling, we are also figuring out what is the newer technology, what we can support. But at the end of the day, we all understand it's about customer experience. So trying to better understand the employee demographics population is being very key. 15 years ago, whom we moved were all more um, Gen X or older. So because they are the main person, people who are like in the prime of their career and and they're moving. But if you see now, we see that generational shift, and right now we are thinking about more younger generational X or generation Z people. So you see there the way they like to be approached. and their preferences are a lot more different than what it was 15 years ago. um, and technology adoption, as you said, is becoming more and more. But at the same time, people want to talk to person even they don't need technology. Like self-service works
Right.
until it doesn't.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, uh, so that has been an exciting journey for us, and we are trying to move towards that more and more technology. But at the end of the day, not forget our roots. So talking about the journey, having a website or a high level just generic report, like we generate an Excel report, that was a wow factor for our clients, like their corporate clients. But now it's more in-depth data analytics, or having an app which is so personalized, which can read into what the preferences of the transferees are, and then kind of suggest this is might be something which will be useful, or this might be something which is employees like you choose. So
Hmm.
this Amazon or Google effect, where people are using all of this consumer related apps, and the expectation is that similar to that, when they're moving, it should also be there. So those are the type of newer things what we are adopting into our products, so that it doesn't look outdated, and it's also something which we are moving along with the generation people who are age demographics we are moving, which is again
Right.
majority of the people.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I didn't realize that Airs had been in business that long, and I mean, I was thinking like just the 14 years that you've been there, the types of transformations that the company's had. But man, to think about what the environment was like 40 years ago is just, I mean, that must have just been like, pencil and paper and phone calls at that time. So it's what I love to hear about this though is the successful transformation, right? Like,
Mhm.
let's be honest, it's hard starting any tech company.
Mhm.
I think it's also really hard to take a company that's, been around for 40 years, and your team and the team and the people at Airs have actually invested in that, that digital transformation, for lack of, a better term. But Airs has gone from, a more traditional, just relocation company, and actually turn that into a global tech company. I think that's rad. Um, That's great. So I heard one thing in there that I wanted to kind of touch on, because I think it'll lead us kind of into our next point as we're talking about the future. But I heard something in there that sounded a little bit like, you said that the product's able to make suggestions. So has your team actually started to implement things like machine learning and AI into the product to help, understand what customers are, what their preferences are, and like what they're looking for, and to be able to pair them, potentially with, for example, vendors, like maybe like a veterinarian, or preferred schools. Sounds like, maybe you're doing some of that.
We are. I don't
Cool.
think it's yet prime time ready yet. We are already dabbling with it, and we have been invested almost now 2.5 years on that, right?
Cool.
But I think as you can see from a model of uh, like AI modeling and everything like that takes time, because the
Hmm.
company, the organization, and even the data organization is, it's not simple as that. So we are prepared to as you look into the future, to get there, I think sooner rather than later. But we have been in that transformation journey for a while now, and that's our goal, because
Hmm.
we foresee that AI and machine learning is going to be ubiquitous across the board everywhere,
Right.
and to not adopt it wherever it's supposed to be, then we might become the dinosaurs of the world.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And I think the thing about machine learning too is that this is something my traditional background, I started out as, more of a front end engineer before kind of diving into the back end. And, now I'm really passionate about cloud architecture and building cloud, cloud first applications. But um when I started learning about machine learning for the first time, one of the things that really surprised me was almost the simplicity of some of the code, but the amount of data that it processes was mind blowing to me.
Mhm.
And I think, when you're talking about machine learning and you're talking about implementing it into a product, there's so much data warehousing that has to go on, and there's, so much storage of data, and then understanding, what the dependent variables are, and making sure that you have a defined outcome. So anyways, it's definitely not an easy problem to solve, and it definitely takes a long time to gather all that data and get it in a format that's usable, right? And also, experimenting and understanding, what are the things that help you build what are the variables that help you build a realistic model, right? Like,
Sure.
obviously, gas prices probably don't factor into recommending veterinarian or doctor services, things like that. And so making sure that's obviously a really like blatant example, but sometimes there's things out there that aren't necessarily so clear, and to wade through that and to remove variables that don't actually affect the outcome that you're looking for, and that stuff takes time. And anyways, I think it's great that you guys are using that.
Mm.
um we're getting close to the end of the show, so I wanted to kind of take that and transition it a little bit. um One of my like favorite questions that I always ask every guest, because I'm super passionate about it, but talk to me a little bit about maybe the heirs roadmap, and then how you think future tech's going to affect the company roadmap, and maybe talk to me a little bit about some of the things that you're passionate about that are coming up in future tech.
Mm.
Because I think it's always important to see like what's coming and what's ahead, because it's such a quickly changing industry. But would love to hear your thoughts on future tech, and maybe how you think it's going to affect heirs roadmap.
Sure. So I think when we think about future tech, more related to our industry and our company, right? There are two or three parallel um, themes which is going to um, think about in the next 5 years or 10 years, right? One is more personalization of services. We talked about it, right? What as employees like you do, or what could be something which it might be needed for this employee um, 3 months down the line, depending on the data. And if the person has special needs, then this is something which we would want to proactively address. So, how can we get a very personalized service depending on all the data what we have collected in the world of relocation is going to become more and more important,
Hmm.
and not losing the customer human element at all, but more so augmenting it and then aiding on that. Um, that's one. The other is more so collecting a lot of data for our corporate clients, because they have a number of different ways of moving their talent, and strategically giving them more predictive and prescriptive data related to, here's how your program looks like, and here are the things you might want to think about. And what does that do? It really then helps them to get the seat at the table for their within their organization to make key decisions. So that's an area where we definitely feel from our corporate client, where we'll be able to help them realize the potential of this AI and machine language to translate the data and then become more prescriptive, to give them insights into what could be they thinking about in the future, provided it aligns with their goals. So those are two key themes I could think about. And then the third I do think is that we talk about this omni-channel, right? I'm an omni-channel is like different people like to talk, and it should be continuous to the person. Like I text somebody, and then I'll have a video call, and then I WhatsApp somebody. All of that has to be kind of talking to each other and have that omni-channel communication, because at the end, again, it goes to more individualized services to an employee, because a person is moving from, say, London to New York. He wants to use WhatsApp in London, but then when he
Hmm.
comes in the US, text is more prevalent and he likes making text. It should be
Yep.
continuous. So those are three themes what we see in the future, which is going to be realized in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm pretty sure we are pretty much passionate about it and excited to work on those areas. We are already working on those areas, experimenting a lot, and we feel like that's the future of how the customer experience is going to be shaping in the world of relocation.
I love that. And I love all 3 points that you just brought up there. I do want to highlight really quick the second one. I think is key to uh where work culture is going nowadays, right? Because if you're able to provide to employers, hey, even down to, hey, I think this person fits a relocation profile and I think they can handle it and it's something that they're going to enjoy. I think you can also help with churn and people resigning after a relocation because it's not something that works out for them. So I think what you're talking about right now, it's not just about making the relocation less stressful, but now you're getting into actually improving the employee's experience at the company as well. So now all of a sudden you're affecting more than just the relocation, right? And you're actually able to tell companies, hey, I think this person would be a great fit, or you know what, there's a lot going on. This might not be the right move in this particular situation, right? And I think that's super important because mental health is a predominant factor in work culture nowadays, and it's something that we're all very very aware of and very passionate about. I have a strong opinion on especially for us is happy employees or productive employees. And if
Mhm.
somebody's moved halfway across the world and all they're thinking about is how much they miss their old life and their family, it's leading to not necessarily being as productive. So I love that second point that you made. Anand, great talking to you. Love what y'all are doing at Airs, and thank you for taking the time to be with us. Really quick, I just wanted to highlight for those of you in the chat that said that you're interested in applying for being an engineer or a programmer. You can visit our careers page, or you can reach out to Melanie at development.io. I'll show this really quick if you're interested. Always looking for good engineers and good programmers. So appreciate you guys listening in, and please feel free to submit your CVs over there. Anand, again, thanks so much for being with us. Carlos, do you want to pop in really quick and give us the show schedule for next week?
Certainly, Eddie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Monday, we'll have Cody Eddings from Snap Refund. Then Wednesday, we're going to be talking to Owen McAndrews from Sprout Social. This should be interesting. Sprout Social is a huge company with a lot of interesting things going on. And then on Thursday, we'll be talking to Carl Dietrich from Jump Arrow. And then finally on Friday, we're going to be having a conversation with Corey Kosak at Aspire Ship. So that's what we have confirmed for next week, Eddie. So, folks, if you're watching, join Tech Backstage and Eddie Hudson here on next week at 11 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. Don't miss it. Be here. Thanks,
everyone. Carlos. Thanks, Anand. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Next week.